Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to Edwards Air Force Base for today's ceremony honoring Colonel Douglas P. Wickert on the occasion of his promotion to Brigadier General. The presiding official for today's ceremony is Major General Scott Kane, Commander, Air Force Test Center. I'm Major Stephen Sullivan, and I'm honored to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for today's event. For the purpose of military protocol, this is considered an indoor ceremony. Military members should stand at attention during ruffles and flourishes, the national anthem, and should not salute. We invite our civilian guests to participate by standing and placing their right hands over their hearts. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our distinguished guests in attendance today. We ask that you please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. We'd like to extend a warm welcome to Colonel Wickert's wife, Jody, and online, their daughter, Second Lieutenant Charlotte Wickert, their son, Cadet Cole Wickert, and their daughter, Miss Cora Wickert. His father and mother, Colonel Roger Wickert, United States Air Force retired, and Miss Nancy Wickert. Online, his 100-year-old grandmother, Ms. Irene Kelly. We also recognize and welcome our Air Force Test Center senior leadership in attendance. From the Test Center, our host, Major General Scott A. Kane and his wife, Michelle, Mr. Arthur Huber, Executive Director, Chief Master Sergeant Jeffrey Martin, Command Chief. From the 412th Test Wing, Colonel James Hayes, Deputy Commander, Mr. Daniel Osborne, Senior Technical Director, and his wife, Kathy, Chief Master Sergeant Chief Justin Stolfitz, Command Chief, and his wife, Jess. We're also honored to welcome Assemblyman Tom Lackey, representing the 34th Assembly District, and our civic and community leaders. We're grateful that many of other current and former senior leaders, colleagues, friends, and co-workers have come in person and online to pay special tribute to Colonel Wickert. We thank you for attending. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for all of our distinguished guests. Team Takata 2, please stand for the arrival of the official party and playing of ruffles and flourishes, and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by Miss Kristen Burks.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the invocation provided by Chaplain Francisco Gonzalez Vargas.
Will you join me bowing your heads? Heavenly Father, this ceremony is a wonderful reminder that your love and kindness will never cease, your compassions never fail. They're renewed every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Colonel Wickert's legacy of leadership is a testimony of the extraordinary blessings you have showered upon him, and that is ultimately your desire for all of us. We are grateful for your wise hand of grace that first guided him throughout his work and now has granted him this promotion today. We know, Lord, that in all things you work for the good of those who love you in accordance to your purpose. Today, Lord, we humbly confess that due diligence is never enough to grant us the success we seek. Today, we reflect on the many years of military service and remind him of the countless men and women who stood alongside him, prayed for him, and granted him a listening ear and a helping hand. May they too see success in their endeavors. But today we know that Colonel Wickert is especially thankful for the love and sacrifices of his amazing family. For each of them, we're truly grateful, and we ask for your loving hand be upon them as they enter into this new season and transition. Specifically now, that even though there's no such power of yours, becoming a Brigadier General of the United States Air Force means that a huge load of responsibilities lay upon his new authority. He will see many victories, but also will have to handle tough decisions that will have a direct impact upon many lives, sometimes good, sometimes not so much. For this, O Lord, as you have done in the past, continue to bless his family and strengthen them, and then give them wisdom and the proper tools to carry out these new responsibilities and navigate through this ocean of military complexity. May Douglas B. Wickert, future general, continue to be a model of care for all those who follow him and encouragement to all those who will count on him. May his future path be smooth and all his burdens light, and may their joys be many. All this we pray in your most holy name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke and Chaplain Gonzalez Vargas. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Team Edwards, it's my great pleasure to introduce Major General Scott A. Kane, Commander, Air Force Test Center.
Heard a little hoot and hollering from the 412th team, as would be expected there. So, hey everybody, welcome to this awesome event. I can't help but start this whole thing by giving a little shout out to the class of 1995 and say keep the pride. I don't know if Vern's out there, but we may have some other folks online, but it's actually the first chance I've had to do that in 30 years to say something like that in a ceremony. So we were classmates from USAFA, class of 1995. And, you know, this is the experience anyone has when they know Doug Wickert. Even when I walk around Edwards Air Force Base, you know, I'll start talking to people and they'll ask me what I do, and they're like, "Oh, you must know Colonel Wickert." And I'm like, "Yeah, he's pretty great, isn't he?" And but he's a great leader, and people love him. And so I've known him for a long time, and you know, I'm going to tell a little about his story today, more than he wanted to, because he's such a humble, selfless guy. But I do think it's appropriate to start back then in that 1995. And I don't know if this is legend in my mind or if this is real at this point. But you know, Beaker's a brilliant individual, right? And sometimes I tell people I was in the same major as him, but then I realized, well, he had a couple of majors, so he was in majors with other people. But there was actually some consternation at the time from the faculty, I'll say, about what you wanted to do with your life, because he's had a lifelong dream and passion for flying, and he wanted to pursue that, and that wasn't what everybody thought this brilliant mind should necessarily be doing. And I think about that now with a little more, I guess, knowledge of history and maybe maturity. And maybe I could have realized this if I'd paid better attention in our military arts and sciences class back then. But he's kind of following in the footsteps by doing that of some great technical aviation leaders our service has had since its inception. And I'm talking about Hap Arnold, I'm talking about Jimmy Doolittle, I'm talking about General Schriever. And Doolittle, Schriever, those guys were test pilots, and they were very technically apt. And the path that he has taken does have precedent, and I'm thankful he's taken that path. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that path as I go deeper into the talk here. But I'm thankful that you're here with us today. I don't know a lot about those great technical leaders of the past families, other than maybe one who's in the audience with us today, JD. But I do know the other great thing about Beaker is he comes with an incredible family, and he puts great value on that as well. And this is another great strength of Beaker. So I want to welcome Jody, and a very successful of her own, but I want to highlight your service and your sacrifice. Growing up as a military brat, and then being on this ride for almost 30 years now, you've been associated with the service your entire life. So thank you for your support to him, your support to us, for what you do for our nation. This is a great deal for us as well. I do want to, it was mentioned that Second Lieutenant Charlotte Wickert and Cadet Cole Wickert and Cora are all on the line, all of whom are following in the footsteps of their parents and probably exceeding those. So thank you for joining us as well, and you give me great hope for the future too, knowing that that you're going to even, if you don't think it's possible, I think they will actually surpass what Beaker has done. Already have, too easy. And then last but not least, we have Roger, Colonel Wickert, and Nancy. Usually when we have often when we have a great leader, we like to take a lot of pride and credit for developing leaders, but a lot of the time the great leaders that we have show up with a value set and a work ethic that gives them a boost, and you certainly did that for Beaker, and we appreciate you. I also appreciate that there was this kind of serendipitous intersection in the B1 SPO back at Wright-Patterson in the day, which brought these two together at Beaver Creek High School. As I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jody, but Beaker said it was love at first sight for him, right? But that's how they met, and fortunately, we're able to rekindle that once Beaker got a little deeper into his career in Boston, and you guys have been on this journey ever since. So Beaker didn't want me to talk through his career, but I'm sorry, I can't help doing some of that. It's really fascinating. And it's important for you to understand kind of how someone gets to this point and some of the accomplishments that he's made, just the caliber of this individual. The first thing that I'll start with is he did leave the academy to go to Boston, I said, where they got married and pursued an advanced degree. So he was on the Draper Scholarship at MIT, and interestingly studying how you would replace the AWACS with space-based capability, how you would do that with a proliferated constellation. Well, sounds like pretty good ideas, right? Hopefully we're getting there. It's been a few years, but we're getting there. So he did set off on that academic foot, but he immediately got back to what his dream was, and he went to pilot training, and he went to Vance for pilot training. And as you would expect, won every award in that course. He won the Flying Award, he won the AETC Commander's Trophy, he won the Outstanding Leadership Award. And then after he went to Luke to F-16 training in the Mighty Viper, He actually found out he won the Dedalian, it's the Orville Wright Award, for the outstanding UPT graduate of the entire year, right? So no one in here is surprised by that, but that's the pattern and the repetition that happens in everything he does. He's a distinguished graduate out of F-16 training, and then goes off to be a combat pilot. So most of you know Beaker as a technical leader, and I started out talking about being a technical leader, but he's also a combat leader. He had combat time when he was at Hill Air Force Base on his first tour in the F-16. We barely missed each other on a rotation through Southern Watch, but engaged the Iraqi air defenses there, and got some credible combat time. And then followed on with some time at Osan Air Base, where you're nothing but at the tip of the spear, enforcing the armistice that's been in place since the end of the Korean War. And throughout that whole time, it was easily recognized by everyone who saw him that he wanted to go to test pilot school, but he was the guy that should go to test pilot school. And that's where he went. Now, he does have a patch that looks a little different from the one that I wear on my shoulder, because he went to the Navy test pilot school at Pax River. And guess what number he was out of that class? Yeah, number one, right? Number one out of 35, and fortunately, we got him immediately back into the Air Force Test Center at the 40th Flight Test Squadron. Now, a lot of the things that we like to talk about when you're in a flight test squadron or when you're in a wing are those things that you accomplish. Like he did work there on the JASSM, the Joint Air Surface Standoff Missile, some like early work. On JHEMICs and panoramic night vision goggles and these kind of things, which are all cool. But the really cool thing that a guy like Beaker does when he shows up at a place like that is realizes that we've been doing something the same way for 30 years, and he just flips it on its head. And that's the kind of stuff that he did there. Looked at our certification processes, looked at things that could boost the efficiency of our test, and kind of reinvented the business, as he's done with everything that he touches. So he was also pushing to further his academic interests at that point, and was able to secure himself a PhD program. So he went to AFIT, where he studied aeronautical engineering, and got his PhD there. And then he went for a long time. This is what makes it easier for me to talk about your career. Most of it I can't talk about. And I would describe it as a DC data masked go-round. So they did tours in the Washington, D.C. area, and something we call data masked back and forth for literally a decade. So out of that PhD program, went to the JPO and did the Joint Program Office, did things with the F-35 that we can't talk about. Then he went to a data masked location where he started his leadership as a squadron commander, and did more things that we can't talk about, so it just goes fast. And then Beaker was selected for the Eisenhower School. It's another thing that we have in common. Went to the former industrial college of the Armed Forces, now called the Eisenhower School, and came out of there as a distinguished graduate. But sent him back to Data Mast, where he was a leader once again. I do want to pause there just for a moment, and the kind of things I mentioned that he was, turned the enterprise on his head everywhere he went. I won't get into all the details, nor can I, but generational changes happening to the capabilities that he had his hands on at that time. And also dealing with some very tough things that happen in this business. Had to deal with a Class A fatality, being the interim board president, the first on the scene, and then getting a unit and the people back on its feet. Incredibly difficult thing to go through, but certainly forged him as a leader. And then after that, to get back on the go-round, went back to DC to Air Force TE, where he's now overseeing the entire test and evaluation enterprise, almost 40,000 strong, and setting policy there. And that's where the story then starts to get very interesting, because as you know, Beaker was a permanent professor at the United States Air Force Academy. He was a department head at in the Aeronautical Engineering Department. And certainly he did great things there. He led that institution through the pandemic, which was challenging for all of us. But what he did there was he basically showed how to keep a university running, got not just attention across the Air Force and the DoD, but across the nation for how to do this with a population of students and keep the academic institution running. He calls an accomplishment of his at the Air Force Academy his proudest accomplishment, which is the Heiser Award, which he got as the outstanding academic instructor that's given to you from the cadet wing. And that just kind of tells you what kind of man he is, of what he values, which is that he's inspiring others and that they're recognizing that. But the really interesting part of the story, which most of you know, is that he came back to us. And there's probably a whole parable there about jousting at bureaucracy to get you back on the active duty scroll, I believe is how that works. Some senior leaders really went to bat to get him eligible to be back on a command list. And very few individuals in the world would do something like this of coming back to the organization and letting go of something like that opportunity that he had seized. But I asked him, why he did that. And what he said was that his life's goal is to lead teams deeply engaged in meaningful technical challenges. And this was the one job that could pull him back out of that. And if you decompose that a little bit, there's a lot to it. We know he's a great leader, right? And he enjoys leading. That part's pretty easy. Deeply engaged. He's not interested in managing technical problems. He's not interested in the technical leaders of the Air Force just putting the right people there. He wants to understand the technology. He wants to be deeply engaged himself. He wants to enable teams to be deeply engaged. And then the meaningful technical challenges part, I think, is one to break down even further. It actually reminds me of something I ran across in the Air Force Research Lab. And Cap Rogers, those of you know Cap, national asset in artificial intelligence, who is actually back with the Air Force at the Air Force Research Lab, used to pull in these AI engineers from places like Meta and Google and where the world-class talent was. And they came back to us because they wanted meaningful technical challenges, because we offer that and we have a noble purpose. And that's something that inspires people to be in the service and do what we do. But that was what brought him back to the 412th Test Wing as a commander. And he has had all those accomplishments that I mentioned, like the B-21 has had its first flight. The T-7 is here. We've had multiple hypersonic successes. But his real success is the fact that the people on the base ask me if I know Colonel Wickert. It's that people are, I mentioned hooting and hollering. It's that people do that when he's around. He's a passionate leader. He cares about people. He loves the mission, and he gets it done. And it's certainly a proud moment for me to be here to do this today with you, Beaker. I'll finish by kind of circling back to what I talked about at the beginning about technical leaders. This has been something, certainly as a lab commander and as a test center commander now, that is something that I should be concerned about, is putting technical leaders in the front of the Air Force. If you think back what happened at the service's inception, the reason, one of the main reasons that we were dominant throughout the 20th century and even to today is that we took lessons from World War II. We looked what Nazi Germany was doing, and they were developing technology and had technical leaders in front of that that very well could have surpassed us and changed the outcome. And we realized that that was what we needed to do, and it gave us an asymmetric advantage, like I said, all through the 20th century. And now that that's at risk, that our technological gap is closed, it makes me think about what do we need to do to bring technical leadership into this service, to be a development-oriented service. And I think Beaker has changed my thinking on this a little bit. I thought that my job was to convince my service that this is what we needed to do. But I think about Doolittle, I think about Hap Arnold, I think about Schriever, I think about you, and I think it's creating the opportunities for leaders like you with those skills to be here and to make that service what we know it needs to be. And that's why I'm encouraged. That's why I'm inspired by you. That's why I'm proud to be here, and I'm very hopeful for the future. And so now we're going to watch, there's more in store for this guy, and as he ascends to a technical general officer here today, there's much more in store, and I appreciate you being on this ride. So let's move on with the ceremony and make it official, and then we'll go about our work. Thanks.
Thank you, General Kane. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the publishing of the promotion orders. Attention to order. The President of the United States, acting upon the recommendation of the Secretary of the Air Force, has placed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, integrity, and abilities of Colonel Douglas P. Wickert. In view of these special qualities and his demonstrated potential to serve in the higher grade, Colonel Douglas P. Wickert is appointed to the grade of Brigadier General, United States Air Force, effective the 30th day of October, 2024, by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Teammates, please be seated. Brigadier General Wickert will now have his new rank pinned on by his wife Jody and his mother Nancy. The pinning portion of today's ceremony is a tradition which highlights the significance of the first time a higher rank is placed on the uniform. The star is the oldest continually used rank in the United States military. The use of the star to signify the rank of general officer can be traced to a June 1780 decree by General George Washington during the War of the American Independence. It is believed that General Washington chose the star as a symbol of general officer rank in honor of its use in the Allied French armed forces. It is customary for the promotee to have family members or close friends participate to recognize their contributions to the promotee's success in achieving the higher rank. Team Taconic 2, please stand. I would like to invite Colonel Roger Wickert, United States Air Force retired, to join General Wickert at center stage to re-administer the oath of office.
I, Douglas Paul Wickert, do solemnly swear do solemnly swear that I will, having been appointed a Brigadier General in the United States Air Force, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I would take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
Thank you. That I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
And that I will faithfully
and that I will and faithfully
discharge the duties upon the office I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. General Wickert will now be presented with his new flag. The Air Force authorizes individual flags to those who warrant them by virtue of their office. The use of flags to signify the presence of a general officer can be traced to the British Royal Navy, where an admiral or captain, when in uniform, displayed his flag on the bow of the ship for all official visits. The United States Air Force has incorporated the use of flags to signify the presence of a general officer. This flag will be present at all official military functions and will be visibly displayed in Brigadier General Wickert's office.
Senior disciples, everyone. All right. So I want to say thank you, first off, for doing that. That means a lot to me. We live for first in flight test. And I have not yet given out a one-star coin. And so I want to present my one-star coin. My one, we have had a lot of accomplishments here. B-21 first flight, Tier 3, The one thing that's left undone yet, I want to put a chevron there on top. Senior Sipos is an absolutely phenomenal leader, and the Air Force needs her to be a chief, and I really think that's going to happen someday. But
Big smiles, 1, 2, and 3. Love it, you guys.
See if I can figure this out. You threw a curveball on me, boss. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Douglas P. Wickert. Floor is yours.
all right, thank you. All All right, so I had to write these down because I want to try not to miss anybody. I'm just going to start. If I don't get through all the thank yous, then I know I will. So first off, for everybody that had a hand in pulling the ceremony together on extremely short notice, and actually I even skipped one, General Kane. Thank you for an absolutely in 10% true. I mean, fighter pilot rule. Who would have thought all those years ago, out on the flight line down at the East Airfield that, that you'd be wearing a pair of stars and yeah, nope. So thank you very much for agreeing to this. It really means a lot in KTP. For everybody else that had a hand in pulling this off, it was extremely short notice. So Brandon and Mina, our amazing protocol team, they're on the back. Kristen with the national anthem, just absolutely amazing. Chaplain Gonzalez, thank you. You always find just the perfect words for every invocation that you do, so thanks for doing that. The rest of the front office team, Nicole and Holly and Rip, Sully, thank you very much. Spence, Becca is somewhere around here too. She's trying to hide behind JT. Thank you, everybody. You're just a phenomenal, really special experience, and means a lot to the family, means a lot to the kiddos that are out there online. And speaking of online, our PA team, our crack PA team here to make this happen, thank you very much for broadcasting this into live stream land out there on that thing that used to be called the ARPANET. There are lots of just former colleagues, friends, from throughout the career that are out there. I've gotten notes from a lot of folks. I know Professor Yuckout is watching this. Professor Yuckout, a very, very young Captain Yuckout, a brand new captain, was here in 1972. He had done a pretty good job, so he got there's this new program going on, YA-9, YA-10 fly-off, and the senior captain got to pick. He was absolutely convinced Northrop was going to win. So Captain Yuckout got stuck with the YA-10. And the reason we have an A-10 right now is because young engineers did that, and he had a big hand, fangs, and actually putting together the FDE program that we now have. So Professor Yuckout, lots of other DFAN colleagues and Academy colleagues and former students. Some of them actually are here in the audience. So Captain Victor Kyle, KC-46 pilot at McConnell, made the trip out here, 2020 grad, right there, the only Academy class to graduate on the Trotso. There might have been something going on in 2020 that was a little bit odd and strange, and so they threw their hats up in the air. Let's see, there's other thank yous that I'm supposed to do. All the commanders that are, have come out, I'm looking at just so many great leaders. Thanks for coming out and making this day special. My 100-year-old grandmother, I know, is watching from live stream land, and Grandma, Justin is doing just fine. So she absolutely loves Chief Stoltz. And every time I see her, she's like, so how's Justin doing? And it's reciprocal. So she's something else. We just celebrated her 100th birthday. Other family members, so Charlotte, Cole, Cora, I'll have a little bit more to say about you guys later, but great seeing you. My sister Lisa is out there as well. I think she's probably helping Grandma figure out the ARPANET. So what we just did was actually an echo of the commissioning ceremony. My father administered the oath of office. Obviously, probably from the life choices that I've made, you can tell that he had a fairly large influence in my life. Fangs and I think are equally Jimmy Doolittle fans. Without coordination, the fact that General Kane, kind of, highlighted that pack, and we've got JD here in the audience, continuing on that. So the very first, round of applause for Jimmy Doolittle III. So the first time I ever heard about Jimmy Doolittle was from my father. And I don't remember what base we were at. We had some families in town, and what do you do when you have family visitors? Well, you go to the Air Force Base, and you walk around. And there was an air garden, and I can't remember which base it was, but we're walking around outside with all the static displays, and we get to the B-25. And my dad tells this story about, flying the jets off of the airplanes off of an aircraft carrier and doing the bomb 30 seconds over Tokyo, and that. And so it is such an inspiring story, and it's something that, Victor heard me tell it at the Academy in terms of like the lessons from engineering and the lessons from, the technical leaders as General Kane. It's something that, FANGS is redesigning the test pod school, in the spirit of creating more Jimmy Doolittles. And so, but the very first time I ever heard the story was from my father, so. Yep. So anyway, echoes of the commissioning ceremony. He administered the oath of office to me, my mother, and my, at the time, still my girlfriend after 4 years of doing the long distance thing. She deserves every kind of medal for putting up with that for a long time, not to mention the next 30 years. But they pinned on my second lieutenant rank. Charlotte is now wearing one of those butter bars on her service dress. The other one is actually one that Jody's father had worn when he was a second lieutenant. And so I know your mom and dad would both would have enjoyed today as well. All right, so three significant things happened in May of 1995. One of them, General Kane and I, we commissioned into the Air Force. The second significant thing in May of 1995, the proof to Fermat's last theorem was published after 350 years. That's for you, Chief. Yep. The third thing is that Chief of Staff General Fogelman and Secretary Widnall, they sent out a policy memo adopting the core values: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do, as the official Air Force core values. That took place in May of 1995. It didn't really seem like a big deal to us because for the last 2 years, those were the core values that we had at the Academy. General Bradley C. Hosmer, the first Academy grad to be the superintendent of the Academy, had started the Center for Character Development in 1993 and came up with these three core values. Now, at that point in time, the Air Force didn't have core values. There were principles and character traits that were emphasized. General McPeak had, I think there were 6. There were things like integrity, competence, courage, tenacity, and a couple others. And so you can see the problem. They're kind of hard to remember. And so when General Fogelman, took over as Chief of Staff and really started looking, he's like, we need some enduring principles that we'll live by. And what they've done there at the Academy, that's pretty good. It speaks to character. It's how they're training cadets. And so the Air Force adopted the Academy's core values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. There have been a lot of things that have changed in the 30 years since 1995. We have changed the uniform multiple times. We went from white V-neck shirts underneath the flight suit to black to brown to desert something sage and coyote brown, and we changed boots 4 different times, I think. Black boots and tan boots, desert tan and sage, and now coyote brown. We changed the Air Force song. We actually have we midwifed a new service. So the Air Force is nothing but change, but there's one thing that's not changed in 30 years, and that is the Air Force core values. And that means that we probably got those right. And so I'm not going to talk about all of them. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about one of them. I want to talk about service before self and what that means. And I wrote down the other ones. Patriotism, that was one of the 6 before we adopted the core values that we have. So service before self. You don't have to wear the uniform to serve. And I think the legion of professionals that we have across AFMC, is just, bears testament to that. But you don't have to get a paycheck from the U.S. Treasury either to serve. Our families, both for the military families and the civilian families, serve every bit as much, and oftentimes they don't necessarily get a choice. I mean, I suppose the spouses that marry into the service get a choice. The children don't. But it's, for those in uniform, we often get, thank you for your service, and I always like to look somebody in the eye right when they said that and say, you're welcome, and mean that, sincerely. Our civilians don't necessarily get that. I wish they did. I wish there was some way to do that. Our families certainly don't get that, except for opportunities like this where we can highlight that. And so, that's what I want to do. When, after several years of, we did this for a long time. And right now, so this is the backstory of why I came back. General Kane's already hit a lot of it. We're living in a time of consequence right now. And so this is, I have to say thank you to everybody that's doing something right now, because you all are. Everybody here, I look out and I can point to a number of things that you are contributing. The way of life as we know it, the global peace and prosperity that has existed since the end of World War II, when the existing international rules-based order, that is under threat right now. Chairman Xi is actively chafing against, he sees the West in long-term decline, and he sees the East, and specifically the Chinese Communist Party, in ascendancy. He thinks that their system is superior, this kind of authoritarian command style system being authority, and he looks at what we are and like, yep, they're in a long-time decline. We'll eventually, China is destined, the Chinese Communist Party is what he means by China, is destined to rule the world. And, the secretary recently pointed out that our Air Force has never been smaller or older than it is right now. And the PLA has never been larger or more modern than it is right now. So the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has at its disposal. And that's what, I know what you guys are doing on a daily basis. And I know what the families are enabling because you're coming to work and doing it on a daily basis. And I don't want to dwell on this for too long because I don't want us to, but the way of life as we know it is potentially under threat right now. And we have an opportunity to change Chairman Xi's calculus on the basis of what you guys are developing right now. And that's what we're doing. And that is very, very important. And so I just have to say thank you, and please go home and thank your families, your spouses, whoever means a lot to you, because they are also sacrificing. Service doesn't have to mean sacrifice, it often does. When we put service before self, that also comes along with sacrifices. And so I'll get to Jody in just a second here, and she's gonna hate it. Opportunity came along, and I'm looking right at General Lozano because he and I had a conversation, coming off Group Command, headed to the Pentagon, an opportunity, those permanent professorships, they're kind of like, and T's nodding because she was an AMT at the Academy. They're kind of like Supreme Court appointments. You got to wait for somebody to die or retire before, then they open up. And one had opened up, and I asked General Lozano, I said, hey, here's this opportunity. I would love to go do that. I think I'd be an okay wing commander. I think I'd be a really, really good professor, and I want to go do that. And so I got my dream job. I got to teach. Those 18 to 22-year-olds, their enthusiasm is infectious, and I love being in the classroom. Our family loves doing outdoor things, and so living in Colorado was just it was dream location. We bought our forever home. Jody, a recovering accountant, CPA, her whole life, her dream job was to be a teacher. be an elementary school teacher. So we got to, she got to start her dream job there. So when General Bunch called General Clark, the superintendent of the academy, and then General Schaefer, who's online as well, he sent me a note saying he's going to be online. So, and General Dertine weighed in and said, Beaker, AFMC would like you to come back. And well, let me talk to Jody. And Jody said, you have to do it. And so that means a lot because it is a time of consequence right now. There is nothing that is, nothing can be infinite in a finite universe. The closest thing that I know is just the support and the love, and above all else, the patience that Jody has shown over the years. So Jody, thank you. And I'm gonna say this in front of everybody so that they can hold me accountable, and it's taped, so you can call it up later if need be. I'm going to do what I can to be better about the whole work-life balance, harmony thing, and don't be afraid to call me out on it. All right, so the story I just shared with you, that's our story, but it's not unique. Edwards Air Force Base has a long history of folks that are coming here, and I'd say, there's been a long history of service before self here at Edwards Air Force Base. Quality of life is probably a little bit better. In the early days, family housing was known as kerosene flats. There was this ever-pervasive smell of kerosene that they used for cooking and heating. And the good news is that the wooden duplexes where the married couples lived, the holes, the wooden shacks, the wind blew right through it. So at least the wind carried away all the smell of kerosene. It brought in the dust. And so, certainly we are standing, behind the legacy of all those who came before us and put service before self to give us the Air Force that we have. And that's what we're doing now. So the sacrifices certainly continue, but it's very, very important what we are doing, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that I get to keep on doing this with just a bunch of great teammates as I look around here. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for doing what you're doing for our nation and really for the peace and prosperity of the world. It's not just about America, it's about keeping the global world order. That is the recipe for global prosperity. That's our business. Eisenhower pointed out the only way to win a war is not to fight it, it's to prevent it. And that's what we're doing right now. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for your part in doing all that. For those in Teamland, I know, thank you for your part as well. It's such an honor to serve with you. I think all we have left to do is to sing the Air Force song with the new words, the words that changed. And then we'll head over to Ponchos and look at the walls when you're there. The legacy of all those who came before us are on the walls of Ponchos. Lots of a phenomenal, incredible history here at Edwards Air Force Base. And now we get to add our little part to it. So time for the Air Force song, I think.
Thank you, General Wickert. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. In keeping with Air Force tradition, we conclude today's ceremony with the singing of the Air Force song. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please join Brigadier General Wickert and his family on stage for a receiving line. A reception will be held at Pancho's Lounge, located at Club Maroc, following the ceremony. Thank you for celebrating this special occasion with us.